Hi, I'm John Modlin, Senior Systems Engineer for Profitap in North America. I'm going to show you in this video how I use Profitap's IOTA to analyze Starlink. You can reach me at john.modlin@profitap.com if you have any questions or you want quotes or demos or anything like that. And thank you for watching. So this is a Starlink Generation 2 router that I have hooked up to do this test with. Also, I've got this Ethernet dongle that's connected to the router that also connects to the antenna. And this is sending traffic to the WAN port of my firewall. So the Starlink is my gateway. And there it is out in the yard, and Sophie is guarding it out there. And it's pointing up at the sky. And I'm recording all this with an IOTA 1G, which is a really great tool. And we're going to get into that later. Here I'm looking at the Starlink app, and you can see that it's online. It's connected to the Starlink satellite network. It's getting some throughput. And let's see here. This is how the satellite canopy looks from where the antenna is in the yard. And it says there's no obstructions, which is what you want when you set up your Starlink antenna. And then it's connected to the WAN port of my Ubiquiti firewall, and you can see that device here connected. So that's what we're going to be checking. So here we're looking at the Profitap IOTA, and we're looking at the last 3 hours worth of traffic in the application overview dashboard. And down here, I can see my latencies here for the average server TCP latency, little green numbers here on the outside of the spiral graph, showing, 60, 70 millisecond pretty much average server latency over the last 3 hours. But I had a Zoom call, lasted about half an hour, and I wanted to see how that went using Starlink. So I'm going to go over here and select Zoom because that was my call. And here I can see the time frame that I actually had that Zoom call. It lasted about 30 minutes. And the video call went really good with no problems. And here I can see my conference right here. I'm going to select that. Now I'm looking at the conference call. I had 28 different flows, came up to about half a gigabyte of traffic. And when I come down here, I can see my average latencies. I can see 86 milliseconds here for the average server TCP latency. I can see the maximum latency, which was high, of course. And the flow counts involved in the call. There was 28 flows for that call. And the payload sizes, which came up to 486 megabytes of traffic. When I come down here, I can see where in the world is this traffic actually going to. What was the bandwidth by the client used during that call at about 3.5 megabits per second. And then, of course, my AS name and my total payload again for that specific Zoom call. When I go to the overview dashboard here, we're looking at the same time frame of the Zoom call, and we're still looking at the conference call itself. I can see what IP addresses, what layer 3 was involved in that traffic. And down here, I can see the actual TCP port numbers being used for the calls, what the duration was of each flow that was set up. And I can go and inspect any of these flows by just taking a look at 114 millisecond server latency average and the setup of the call and interesting packet structure information up here. When I come to the TCP analysis dashboard here, I can see my setups here, my three-way handshakes, my average TCP bandwidth. And then down here, I can zoom in on just the zoom part of the call. Now, if I go to total here, I'll see the total, but I could pick zoom. Show me the bandwidth per application down there. And then down here, I can also pick zoom. That's everything here. There is just the zoom average server latency top 10 per 20-second intervals there. And this dashboard kind of emulates the golden graph from Wireshark in the IOTA statistics graphing. When you use TCP analysis flags filter, you get pretty much these things on that graph. And Profitap has kind of recreated that here in a nice graphical view. And you don't have to look at one PCAP at a time. It will use whatever time range you give it up here. So here I'm looking at my average server latency and how that latency is progressing through the Zoom conference call. Down here, again, server latency and then TCP flags. I opened up down here because I wanted to see that. And I was wondering, were there any zero windows? Well, there weren't any zero windows. That's awesome news. And my retransmissions weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, considering it's a satellite connection. So I would say that this looks pretty good. Now, one thing I want to show you is this Internet Protocol Journal in volume 26, number 2. It really, the beginning talks about 5 gig networks, but when you get down into the middle, it breaks into a completely different topic, and it talks about low Earth orbit satellite systems for internet access, which includes, of course, SpaceX Starlink. And there's a lot about Starlink and how it works in this article. And it's really interesting. I suggest you take the time to read this. You can find it, easily at the Internet Protocol Journal online. It's not that long. It's very detailed and very good, and how they've overcome some of the original latency problems that satellite has had, like this interconnecting satellites that they have in a horizon canopy with lasers, so that they can reduce the overall latency. They've launched something like 3,928 satellites, and using lasers to communicate between the satellites has really given them the ability to knock this latency down. Now, you couldn't do Zoom calls or interactive stuff in satellites before because of the uplink delay times. And this is one of the ways they've gotten around that. So I like the Starlink satellite system and how it's working for me. The latency is a little higher than what you typically see on the internet, but it's not a showstopper. And the nice thing about it is I can pick that Starlink system up and I can take it camping. I can take it anywhere I want, really, and just plug it in and set it up. And I have internet. When you're tethered to your local ISP, if they have an outage, you no longer have internet. There's power problems, you no longer have internet. But if you have a generator and you have Starlink, you can get back online no matter what kind of disaster happens here on Earth. And I like the capabilities of that for myself personally. I think it's cool. And I like to have something related to SpaceX in my own inventory. So I just wanted to share that with you. I thought it was really cool. And if there's anything I can do for you on the IOTA side or the Profitap equipment side, please let me know. I can get you quotes, I can do demos, and I can get you equipment. So I'll see you soon.